Friday? That's crazy to think about that, isn't it? Weird.
It's so weird.
To the future, right?
Talking to people in the future right now. It's so
We're
strange.
back to the future. He's
Yeah.
back to the future.
Oh shit, that's funny. Um, yeah. So, Mon, did you see what we were talking about? Talking about?
Yes, I think.
We're gonna talk about just different. B, I'll let you take that one away.
The different abuse tactics.
Yeah.
Um, I think like the two main ones that popped into my head right away were like putting you into a seclusion, like isolating you, um, and sleep deprivation, um, breaching of boundaries and personal space. And I got two exes that did certain things to me when you should have your utmost privacy.
Yep.
And then yeah, so those were just the three main ones that popped in my head. And then I got breaching of boundaries, intimidation, the subtle ways that they will verbally abuse you, psychologically abuse you and manipulate you, put downs, making you the brunt of jokes, trying to humiliate you in front of others in subtle ways, like the
Yep.
dog whistling.
Yep.
So that's just a few that I wrote down, but there's like a pretty good list.
It's crazy how that like there's that is such a multifaceted thing when you once you like really break down like when you come out of a relationship and you start to look at all the different things and you're like, holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. And then, I mean, I know for myself sometimes like some of those shitty behaviors I carried into the next relationship just from being, you know what I mean, sort of molded, I guess you could say. Like my mother is a narcissist, so I already had that against me. So obviously I'm going to attract narcissists because that's, you know, what I've been pretty much trained to do. And yeah, and then even having that little bit of shitty you know, counterpart to myself, right?
I,
Which I identified, thank God.
and
And
you're correct on a lot of that. And um, it's very true that as children we value that connection with our parents. We I don't know, maybe idolize our father or maybe we idolize our mother, depending on the situation, right?
yep,
And that programming that is instilled into us from them, whether it's a somewhat healthy household or an abusive household. But as children, because of the way we're molded, if we've been traumatized as a child, we take on that caretaker role.
yep,
So we sort of get programmed in a way that we got to fix, we got to heal, we got to, make that person better.
yep,
So women have a tendency to attract the men that need to be fixed, and
yep.
men seem to attract the women that need to be fixed. Uh,
Absolutely.
we do that because maybe we're trying to go back to our childhood and fix our parents, or fix our daddy or fix our mommy,
Yep.
and we continue those cycles into adult life relationships that we end up in. I mean, this is me
I
looking.
think that that is such an important piece to point out because when you get into those relationships, at least I'm just speaking for myself, but you're looking for like that familiarity and you're looking almost to fill holes. You're like, how do we complement each other? And you're like, I know that I've been able to help in this way. So then you apply it to these other areas of your life, not realizing that you're actually sort of perpetuating a bit of an issue with yourself and not really, probably overall helping the other person in the way that you are trying to, like, from an authentic point of view. And I know that I had sort of gone through that process with like the first sort of like serious relationships that I was in. I was always sort of viewed as this sort of person who helps with these things or like fixes these problems because that's what I had to do for my family. And so it was so easy for me to kind of step into that role. And I think the men that I attracted into my life were also looking for a woman who could do that.
No, exactly. And I can attest to that myself just with I also came into like there was that super manipulative part too, where it was always made to be like I was a smaller person. Like my first longest relationship that my oldest daughter is the product from, very much belittling and wasn't afraid to do whatever he wanted whenever he wanted because he just regarded me as white trash. He's like, your family is white trash, therefore you are white trash, therefore you are the trash that I will treat like trash, and I will do what I want, and there's nothing you can do or say about it because you're this big. And
So
I
Courtney,
believe that.
because I knew you then, you never told me those things when we were growing up. So why do you think that you held off telling people that that's the way you were? Like, I mean, if I hadn't known that about him, I would have fucking put him in his place.
Because I believed it.
So you just brushed it off, sort of thing.
I just believed it. I was like, no, you're right. This is where I came from. I am that person. Because this is how I always felt about myself. So basically, I found somebody to validate all the negative inner talk, right? And instead of knowing enough to get out of it, I stayed until it no longer served. But I didn't leave because it was, because of the abuse part of it. Like I literally believed everything that he said. All the things he told me. I was like, yeah, nope, you're right. You're right. I am that person.
And this very much resonates with me because my first long-term relationship, I was a poor farm girl. And here he is, he's offering me the world, but at what expense? My sanity, my safety, my like as soon as he was able to take me from my hometown, it went straight into isolation and gaslighting, and the masks started coming off. But he rescued me. He was my hero,
Yep.
and now I should be happy because I'm his trophy wife.
Yep.
And being his trophy wife, I had to act like his Stepford wife. Dutiful. Got to bow down, be thankful because he rescued me from being a poor farmer.
Yeah. I can relate to that to some degree as well because my first long-term relationship, we were quite young and he was there for my life. That was probably the most chaotic it had ever been I was 17 years old. It was really bad. I moved out when I was 17 and I moved in with him. And so it was very much like he was doing me the favor. And I was so desperate to make a change and to try to get out of what I was experiencing that I was definitely overlooking these things for years. Like I was with him for 2.5 years and I was overlooking the red flags because I'm like, no, I need this. I needed some stability in my life. I needed somebody who had watched sort of what was happening. So I was very vulnerable in that sense as well. And I did overlook a lot of the issues because of that.
Yep. I would definitely say that was a lot of my issue too. I'm like, I don't want to fucking ever have to go back home or go move in with one of my parents ever again.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so conditioned to think I could never be on my own and I could never do anything on my own
Mm-hmm.
that I was like, I'll die out here. What do I do? You know? And eventually I ended up moving back in with my mom when I separated. And that was a fucking picnic and a half. And I mean, I've done that, over the years several times. And again, and I like, it's hard to describe this if people have never experienced it. My mother conditioned me this way to keep me close to her so that I always needed her, so that she always had leverage on me
Mm-hmm.
to be like, I did this for you. You owe me this. Like literally accumulated years and years of stuff to be able to throw at me later on and be like, no, you have to take care of me. This is your job now. And I'm like, fuck, I guess it is my job. Until finally one day that glass shattered and I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. And I realized what narcissism was. And I was like, wow, that's insane to me.
Well, and I think moving back home, especially when you're younger, like at my age now, I couldn't, do that. But when I was younger, I moved back home quite a few times as well because you try to like logically understand what you're dealing with. And you're like, it can't be that bad. I must be, like things will get better this time when I come home. Like, now she knows, because my mom's a narcissist as well and drug addict and was terrible, right? But I thought maybe because I had already moved out that she would be grateful for me to come home, only for it to be even more chaotic, you know, and that cycle happened repeatedly. And, but like as a, you know, a young person, I found it to be like, of course I want to move back in with my mom. Like, of course I want to live at my parents. I don't want to be on my own at 18, 19 years old. Like, you, again, I traded one chaos for another chaos back and forth.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was definitely a thing for myself also. And it was always worse every time that I would fall back into that cycle, right?
Yeah.
Again, I was 37 when I was like, okay, this is not good. This has got to go. And then you're like, why the fuck did I have to figure this out at 37? What could my life have been like had I figured this out at 30? But
Yeah.
you can't dwell on that, right? It is what it is. I guess it's better to know than not to know and continue going through, just waiting to figure it out.
I mean, I think you probably knew. There was probably a piece of you who kind of understood that, but it takes a lot of bravery and a lot of confidence to finally make those moves, to make those big decisions, to cut people off, to like radically change the way you live, or what has been your like circumstance for so long. It takes, it's incredibly difficult. It's incredibly exhausting. It's a lot of like mentally, it's a lot of trying to understand things, and oftentimes you end up making that push because of it. There was no other option.
Yeah.
That is like so true, Monica. Like for me, it was, I think I was like 39 or just 40 when I finally cut the ties. And it was really weird because I always knew, right? I always knew that like I just hated the relationship. I always knew, like, felt like it was wrong. Like something just didn't sit with me right. And I could just like really not put my finger on it. And I remember one time, because my mother was a narcissist too, and very manipulative. And I always had to like take her to appointments and blah, blah, blah. And so anyways, one day I pick her up and she's looks at me and she's like, "You think that you're a better fucking mother than I am?" And I just looked at her and I was like, I don't know what the fuck happened in that moment for me, but the light bulb went on and I looked at her and like, fucking rights I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out.
Yeah.
You can find your own way to your appointment because we're done.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like
Even
it
just
was
hearing-
the craziest moment.
Even just hearing you say that, like that, like it, I remember being spoken to like that so many times as well. Like, what, you think you're a better person than me because, you know, you have a job or, you know, whatever it was. Like, but yeah, like inside, it's like you knew that, like, they're like, oh, like you're trying to resist that.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I get it. You know, this is your parent. This is, you know, somebody who you do have that connection with. You know, it doesn't have to be a parent, but if you have a connection with them, like, you try to ignore those things until you can't anymore.
Well, you know,
I
it's
think what
crazy.
it is like deep down inside, we just want it to be so much more.
Yeah.
Right. And so we just have that hope that the relationship's going to change, or you're going to change how you feel, like, because you want that connection so bad.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And it's just one day you realize, what the
can't
fuck
do
are
it.
you doing? Because this
Yeah.
is not going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's such a hard realization too, right? When you come to it. I mean, I had almost the exact same thing happen with my mom. And it was after my stepdad died, and she couldn't find this piece of paperwork, and she insisted I come up to the house. And like, my mom's an alcoholic, so it's like shit's everywhere. She's just drinking. She's not doing anything. She couldn't find this piece of paper. And I'm like, listen, I've gone through everything. I can't find it. And she just turns to me and she's like, I am so glad I never had more children like you. I'm so glad you were the only one. And just went on this tangent about being so ungrateful. And I can't even explain the feeling inside me. it was like being that little kid when somebody yells at you and, like they're just overreacting and you just feel like that cowering. And the other part was rage, like where I could feel blind rage boiling up. And I was like, I could possibly hurt you right now. Like that's what it scared me because it was just like this snap. And I'm like, whoa.
So
Um,
Okay, we need to get rid of this person here.
yeah, I'm on it.
Yeah, I just tried. I can't.
Got it. Out we go. Out we go.
What
Oh.
the fuck?
Oh, wait. Oh, hold on. I don't know if this person, go check out their profile, guys. Because I didn't,
I do have a question because I'm
yeah. I feel like, did I block the wrong person? I don't know now. Shit. Anyone want to trade a boy for a girl? I don't know.
Can
That's
you
weird.
just, it's a Blaze, can you just clarify what you mean by that, please?
I'll just block them. I'll unblock till we figure it out.
Oh, maybe. So, see, I got a question going on in my head because I know for a fact my biological father was a narcissist. And my mother had to play a certain role within that marriage to kind of keep herself safe, but at the same time, her keeping herself safe put us in harm's way. And then there were times she actually stepped in and she was the protector. Like she actually would hide us from my dad. And I know that I've dealt with a female friend for several years, hands down a narcissist. But I question the whole mom thing because my mom was a hypochondriac in the biggest sense of the word. And she was also very keen on the unaliving attempts. And every time she made those attempts, I was the one to blame. So there was huge levels of control and manipulation with myself emotionally on that till the last time she tried it. And something in me just snapped and I said, you know what, maybe the next time you do, make it successful because I'm sick of this shit and I'm sick of you always fucking blaming me.
Yep.
You trying to unalive yourself. I'm not responsible. You're doing it to you. And it was the last time she ever did it. I think she realized at that point she lost that control.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's very reminiscent of a narcissist when they realize that, like, they work the angle. And then if you've cut that off, that's like one of the things that you can do if you feel like you're dealing with somebody is you got to sort of cut off that behavior or cut them off. Like, when we're talking about, like, I've cut my mom off as well, because you can't give them that control because that control is just keeping those actions and those behaviors going.
Absolutely.
You guys ever find that growing up with a narcissist like that you developed some of those traits?
Yeah, absolutely.
We talked about that.
Yep.
Because because my mom was a constant liar. Like if she said the sky is blue, like literally you would have to go outside to see if it was blue. Like everything came out of her mouth was a lie. And the narcissist stuff and that. I think that because I grew up like that and there was so much of it that I actually developed some of those traits. Right? And I catch myself. I'm way better now, but years ago I'd be like, why did I do that? Like that was weird. Do you know what I mean?
I definitely can relate to the lying part. I would find myself now I've had to like make sure I've kept myself in check because I often think like, am I starting to do these things that I hated so much? But the lying part is interesting that you said that specifically because I'm sure this isn't just a narcissist abuse issue. This is probably a trauma response, but I would lie about these little things. And I'm like, why do I have to lie about this? Like, I can't just be honest about like how I'm feeling, what I'm doing, why I'm canceling plans, why I'm not meeting with this person, why I don't really want to attend, why I don't really like this person, or like I don't want them in my space or whatever. Like I would make up these like, oh, like whatever, just like little lies. I mean, those are just some of the examples I can think of off my head. There was lots. Yep. And I remember like later on in life thinking that that was that connection, because I never knew what my mother was like, what she was saying was truthful or not. It was always a like, what is she saying now? Like, where is she getting at now? Like, where is she actually doing this? And she knew that I questioned that all the time too, which is why we used to butt heads so much. But it's like I always was used to so many like little lies. Like I didn't even know what like honesty was like when you're just having normal interactions with people. Like you don't need to be something you're not. Like, but when you're so used to those toxic environments.
You lie to protect yourself as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Your abusers, you adapt the ability to lie prolifically to save your skin,
Yeah.
right? And it's like to placate people or to I think you understand what I'm saying, right? So I mean, I think some of it could be learned behavior from the abusers themselves, but in the interim, because of our trauma responses, we go, hey, no, Dad, I did not spend the money that was needed to do the laundry at the fair and bought fudge. It got stolen or lost.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, it got used at the fair to buy fudge. This is a real life story.
Yeah.
Conflict avoidance. Thank you, Sin. That's exactly.
Yeah, conflict avoidance.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we adapt
Yeah.
things, not that we want to be the liars, but it's that shield of
Yeah.
protection.
And the unpredictability of like never knowing what was going to set them off. So it was like I just erred always on like cautious, and I would find that I would translate that into other relationships later on in my life.
Yep. I still catch myself doing stuff like that. Like, for instance, if my husband comes home early and say I've had a day where I'm just in a mental freeze and I'm playing on my phone, I will jump off that couch and make it look like I'm doing something so that I don't have to explain that I wasn't doing anything. I'm getting better at that because I'm like, that's like, don't continue these bad. You know that this isn't, you don't have to do that, so stop doing that. But it's just this instant reflex, like, oh my God, I have to look like I've been productive all day. Otherwise, I'm a useless human and he's going to leave me and blah, 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 blah. And this like crazy, I call her Shigo, like the ego that's over there talking. I'm always like, listen, Shigo, I don't have time for your shit right now. I don't need to listen to you talk about crap. So
Yeah.
that inner dialogue, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I do.
I've always done, and it'll be interesting to hear what you guys think of this, but I would fake sleep. And I did that when I was younger, and I've done that even like in recent years with fake sleeping to not engage.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, ugh. Kind of hits home because it's not, I don't need to do that.
No,
Like,
but it's
nothing in my life that makes me need to do that at this point.
Yep. But I do the same thing too sometimes. Like just to, even if it's just to have a little bit more time to myself, just before I have to deal with the rest of anything, you know, I do that sometimes. I mean, I'm not gonna, might as well own it, right? But sometimes it's just, it's a self-preservation thing, really. You
Yeah.
know, because you take on a lot, right? Especially when you're trying to heal all the things that happened and sometimes your capacity is absolutely zero.
Yeah.
I would attempt the fake sleep in the one relationship and it never worked. As he would simply grab me by my ankles and rip me out of bed or shove me onto the floor or pull me off the couch onto the floor, whatever it was. Sleep it on my time, get up and get shit done.
Yeah, ugh. That reminds me, have you guys ever seen the movie The Burning Bed with Farrah Fawcett? It is based on a true story,
Yep.
but a woman who was abused so badly and nobody would do anything that she literally set their bed on fire while he was passed out drunk in it. And
That was a long time ago.
yeah, that movie, I think it was from like 1983 or something. And yeah, she set anyways, true story, set the bed on fire. He died. I think she got away with it. I think she got off on
He was
self-defense or something. I can't remember.
I think so. It's so long ago.
Yeah. but it just happened to come into my foresight again. And I was like, oh my God, that movie. And it's, I mean, those are sometimes the extremes that people have to go to, right? To protect themselves.
I can't even imagine what would have been going through your head when those moments were happening, and that to that extreme levels. Like, it's crazy. It's intense.
It was brutal. He gave me my first back injury, and despite the injury, and he knew what the doctor's orders were, it took over 2.5 years for me to be able to walk upright, because besides that back injury, I'm being yanked out of bed by my ankles to get in the kitchen and cook me breakfast, make my lunch. This is what I want for lunch for work. Dinner has to be out the table for 6 o'clock in the evening. No, I don't like what you cooked. It's going to go in the garbage. You need to recook something else because this is what I want. Like, just bizarre. Like, I look back and it's like I look at the freaking Twilight Zone. My life has been like the Twilight Zone, and I look back going, "How? Why? What?" Yeah, it was terrifying. I mean, because if it wasn't me fake sleeping, it was me sleeping.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't care if you're sick, I don't care if you're injured, I don't care. Get your ass out of bed, get your ass off the couch, get my shit done for me, and be that beautiful wife.
Yeah, I used to fake
So
sleep all the time too, hoping that my abusers wouldn't come in the middle of the night, right?
Yeah.
I would rush home from school and I would hide in my closet in my bedroom so nobody knew I was home. And I would sit for hours in my closet. I even had like a dish so I could go pee if I needed to go pee in the closet.
is that a resume? That's where I spent. Like, I grew up when I went into foster care. It was a safe space, but they still would find me hiding in the closet. When they bought me like a captain's bed, if you're familiar with those beds are like, they almost have that cubby in the back. If they
Yeah,
could
yeah.
find me there, they would find me there. Like, those were my safe spaces. That's where I could tune out the whole freaking world and just be left alone with whatever was going on, and just
Yeah.
feel safe.
I never had that. Like, I actually used to make little cubbies in my room. Because I had a desk that I could put in a corner and had like the open underneath part, and I could crawl in there, and there was like a good 4 foot space that I could like lay down and sleep in. And I would hide there sometimes, because my mom, in the middle of the night when she was really, really drunk, would come and crawl into bed with me. And if she wasn't waking me up, like just talking to herself, talking to me, and being like, "Do you know how much I love you?" And if the response wasn't what she wanted to hear, it would turn into this very like cryptic, uncomfortable conversation at 2 in the morning when you're 6 years old.
Oh, yes.
And then if there wasn't that, then she would crawl into bed and she would pee the bed. And I would wake up and have to, go change and then get towels to barricade myself because you can't get her out of the bed. So sleeping was terrifying as a kid. I didn't want to sleep. I never wanted to sleep because I'm like, I don't ever want to, you know,
Yep.
you just didn't know. It was so unpredictable, right? It was so unpredictable what was going to happen. And that, it still fucks with me a little bit now, here and there, but I definitely, my environment's not the same. So I'm like, that's good. But, just those things are like, it's crazy.
Yes. I get
See,
the
mine.
sleeping part. Like I struggle a lot with sleep, even like to this day. And it's because I'm so hyper vigilant, thinking, because I was like that with a kid for so long. Is somebody going to come in tonight? You know what I mean? Is somebody coming in tonight to hurt me?
Yeah.
And to this day, like I don't even know what you call it. It's just, I'm always just so
Sleeping
in
with one
tune at
eye open.
nighttime.
Let's be,
Yeah. And
literally.
I don't know if I'll ever get over that. My best sleeps are when my husband is home. And so it's been actually quite rough with me because he works in Texas. So I've noticed lately that I don't get much sleep, and that's because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Well, exactly. You don't have a protector, right?
yeah, I
Yeah.
go from insomnia
Yeah.
to literal sleep avoidance.
Hi,
Yeah.
Valerie.
If things are going on up here or in my environment, I won't sleep because I don't feel safe, or I won't sleep because of the night terrors and the nightmares that plague me. And
Yeah.
you know, and it one little noise and I go into that fight, flight, freeze, fawn mode. And I'm going, what the hell is going on here? And I'm like, because that shadow moved over there, that might be my daddy. That shadow moved over there, it might be my uncle. If it's not one of those two, it's somebody from the party who's just going to come and have a feast and then disappear back to the party. Like we were
Yep.
offered up as children. My older sibling and I, we were literally offered up to people that came to the house when there was parties. We were part of the party favors to the people that came to those parties. So you can imagine, you know, it's time for bed. Here, have some wine in your baby bottle. Have some wine in your sippy cups. Hopefully, you'll just sleep through everything.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That's what it was like for me too. The heroin. I was given heroin at 9 years old, and I was the party girl.
Okay. Fucking sick. People are so fucking sick.
I can't imagine
Yeah,
at that
entertainment.
age. Like that's just completely blows my mind because I can. It was the same for me. My house was the party house. It was filled with drug addicts and drug dealers, the whole thing all the time. And I was old enough, 12 years old, to be doing it myself. So I didn't have like the fear so much. I always had people with me. Honestly, I always had friends over, boyfriends or whoever. So like I was very young and not like supervised. So like I was engaging in those reckless activities with everybody. I can't imagine I had that choice. I can't imagine not having a choice. It's utterly disgusting, honestly. I'm so sorry.
I can't. I just it makes me so fucking angry because you think about kids and you're like, why? I don't understand the whole like they're kids for fuck's sake. I watched this thing today and this counselor guy was talking about parents who talk about how much they love their kids, like, oh, I love my children, there's no way my kids love me more than I love them. And it's like, no, our kids do love us more than we love them. Our kids idolize us. Our kids trust us. Our kids will do anything we tell them and anything for us. We are the ones that manipulate their love, like parents, not kids. And that's what's so fucked to me. It's like we were tiny little people, and people should have taken care of us, and they didn't. And that's really fucking infuriating.
And when you recognize the fact that what you received as a child was toxic, it wasn't love. There's no love there. I don't think they actually even understood that what love means or what healthy love is.
Yep.
They just simply take that word and use it as a form of control and manipulation. And because you're my child and because you're this, you owe it to me.
I'm so sorry, Valerie. I just noticed Valerie's comment here. She's
She's got one that's blocked. It says you guys are so brave, but it says it's blocked.
I know that's my cousin Natalie. Hi, Natty.
I don't know
I
why.
will point out that, and this is in by no way like a defense, but the people that we are referring to are very unhealthy individuals.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about what our experience has been with dealing with them and the hardships that we've endured as a result of these very unhealthy individuals. It's not an excuse for their behavior, but we're talking about people who are like not clear in the head. They have very significant like issues mentally, whatever. Like these are not like, I just want to point that out because although we're talking about parents and things like that, we're talking about parents as in like they were
Our experiences from that, not in general. I just like
Yeah.
I just want to make that aware to people so that like we're speaking from our points of view and that this can, I mean, could be your parents, it could be other people. But these people are not right. Like
No.
these things that they've done, there's absolutely like there's zero tolerance for that. There's zero excuse for this. And they should be, in my opinion, like locked away because they're a danger to society. Like these are people who, they need
You're
a lot
very,
of help
very right,
themselves.
because it wasn't until I was in my 30s that I had a better understanding of the childhood my mother had and the childhood my father had.
Yeah.
I had to go through processing all of that information to go, my mother was severely abused to the point of severe disassociation that when people started doing therapy with her, when she started actually getting therapy after leaving my biological father, she wouldn't talk to people directly. She used puppets. She would actually put puppets on her hands to talk to people because she didn't know how to use her own voice. But she was prostituted out by her own mother. She was abused by her brothers. The list goes on. So she did not have that internal strength to do any of the work for herself to heal. And then along comes my father, who was beaten and abused as a child as well. And he got programmed with a certain programming that there was no empathy, there was no care. It's everything was regimented, everything was military style. If you deviated, you'd be lucky to not go a day without a beating. And that was his programming.
Yep.
From a very damaged childhood too.
Yep.
So it's like I still try and process that even to this day. It's like, you know what, like they went through hell themselves, but we're the ones doing all the healing.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that's kind of where the rage bubble comes in, because it's
Yeah.
just,
Mhm.
that acceptance that you have to be the one so that that doesn't happen to your children. And, you kind of, sometimes you kind of fall back into that spot where you're like, why couldn't somebody have thought of me like this? Well, why did I have to endure that? Like, and that's a part I think that will always come and go.
Mhm.
It's a human part, right? I mean, obviously everybody's like, I missed out on the most fundamental part of being a human being, which is being a child.
Mhm.
I didn't get to be a child. I didn't get to feel what unconditional love felt like. I didn't get to feel safe. I didn't, you know,
Yep.
I feel like it is forgive someone for you and not them kind of a situation, taking control back to understand them for absolutely. I refer like that for me is I've found grace with my mom. I don't speak to her, but I have grace for knowing what she went through in her life and knowing that it was really there were times where it was really, really bad. And it doesn't excuse her behavior because everybody has a choice. You can always choose better. That's just all there is to it.
I went from being born to adulthood immediately. Absolutely fallen one.
Yeah.
And that's true, right? We step right into adulthood whether we want to or not. We don't have an innocent life or an innocent childhood. We don't even get to experience what it's like to have that innocence.
Yeah. And it's not to be like, oh, wah, 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 poor me, but it fucking sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks when you're an adult and you're like, these things I didn't have. So now I'm trying to, what did I call it? There was a thing I said today to myself. I was like, all of a sudden the Chronicles of Narnia popped in my head. And I was like, it's like the Chronicles of childhood trauma. You have the child, the trauma, and now the unself-regulated adult. Like there's that whole, part of it, right?
Mhm.
I'm gonna step out for a minute. I just had a call that came in and I need to respond to it right away. So I'm gonna step out for a minute, but I'll come right back in.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll be back.
No worries. We could probably catch up on some comments. I feel bad.
Right?
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, please send us like any questions or
Yeah,
anything
yes.
you guys are feeling through all of this. I appreciate what's been coming through. But it is, and B kind of summed it up, kind of the other side of what I was trying to get at with, like, there's these people have done these terrible things, but they are coming from their own experiences and their own traumas and things like that. Generally, that has usually plays a pretty big role in it. And there was a point in my life, it was about a year ago actually, that I sort of had a bit of an epiphany where I was dealing with a lot of my own mental health issues and big changes in my life, and was really like working on my healing. And it did hit me that I started to understand the gravity of the mental health issues that my mother had. And it did allow, and like we've talked about this before in the podcast, it did allow for like a certain amount of forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't quite the word, like grace. You know, I was able to offer a little bit more grace. I don't have any connection with her anymore, but in my mind, I was able to make some peace because I started to understand a little bit, just a little bit about that there is difficulties that people experience in their lives that we don't really know, you know, about. Sorry, I'm just.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's very, very true. It's just, I guess it all too, it really comes down to like how far someone has taken something too, right? Like I know when you talk about stuff ignited, like you were adopted, and that part for you, like people just being like, I'm taking you in. I'm supposed to be treating you like my child. I'm supposed to be protecting you as I would a biological child, but instead I'm going to use that as an excuse not to protect you
Yeah.
and do whatever the fuck I want, which is really, really messed up.
And
Yeah.
okay, I have, and this is I don't really I actually was gonna adopt because we struggle a lot with kids, and I found the okay. So this is just sort of like a question I have really, because it was very difficult for us to try to adopt a child. It was like a lot of intense screening and all this sort of thing. And
Right.
I guess I'm wondering, like, was the systems like a lot different, you know, back then? Like, is that how
Yeah.
all of this would come about? And so I guess these, you know, regulations and screening and all this stuff, is that because there it was so rampant? Because I mean, I hate to say it, but there's a lot of like ignited. I've heard a lot of stories of like children that were adopted that have been abused. Like it just seems like it was
Yeah.
so rampant. It was so common, which is
People
mind
adopt
blowing to
kids for
me
that
because
reason.
I feel like when you are trying to adopt a child, it's like such this beautiful like process, and it's this commitment you're trying to make. I can't imagine it being for anything other than love. Like it just breaks my heart, honestly.
Yeah. Back then, like in the 70s and 80s, you want a baby? Here you go. Here's a baby for you.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Yeah, there wasn't much guidelines back then.
I was adoptable because I was young enough, but this ministry and my foster parents knew the bond that I had with my sister, and they knew that it would be a huge setback for me if they separated us, because I was mommy. That was my programming, right? I was mommy to my older sister. Um, but they knew that to separate us would be a big mistake, and that's part of the court proceedings that happened, was to prevent me from being adopted out. And that court proceedings lasted 7 years. Now I'm too old to be adopted, and I ended up in foster care as permanent custody, which became a form of adoption, which meant that my sibling and I were going to stay in that home. Nobody can take us from that home.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
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 And this is in Canada for anybody who's not in Canada, because we're all in Canada.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank God for that, because had I been adopted out, it could have been a completely different story for me as well.
Yeah.
You know, like I might not have had the resources available, and the family that adopted me would have probably gone through hell, not knowing what they're doing with such a damaged child.
Well, and that was part of the screening that we had to go through, was understanding that we are likely going to be adopting a child who's come from a and you had the option like and it was a timeline thing. So it was like, do you have like 5 years to commit to this? Because if so, then you can adopt a child that's under like 2 years. I think it was like 2 years old or something.
Mm-hmm.
With like the understanding, or it might have been a little bit older than two actually, but because like developmental wise, past a certain age, they don't remember things. So maybe the child had been abused or, for, whatever, but I wouldn't have to, as the adopted parent, like the parent, have to deal as much where if you were wanting a sort of a quicker turnaround. I mean, it seems so transactional the way I say it,
But it, well,
but
I mean, yeah.
it was like if you were okay with an older child who was like 6, 8, 10 or something like that, you have to understand that this is a different type of commitment, which we were open to as well. But
Yeah, it's crazy to think about how it all, like, I mean, even for my dad's adoption, um like it was so, once after he passed away and I had his death certificate and I could get the paperwork to find out, because he had a totally different name at birth, right? So to find that out and then to, start the process of finding family, but it was just so, like, talk about like a backyard handoff, but yet you couldn't find anything. It was, have to go. Love the forum, ladies. Keep up the awareness. Oh, thank you, Fallen One. We appreciate you. Oh, thank you. Yeah, so just finding all that out. And then for my dad, just a little bit of a backstory. Like, when he didn't find out he was adopted until he was 17 years old. And they were literally at the dinner table one night, and his aunt that he was the closest to said to his parents, he's like, I think it's time we tell Doug the truth. And my dad's like, the truth about what? And they're like, well, you were adopted. And it just fucking derailed him. Like, just knocked him right on his ass. He was like, I'm what? Meanwhile, he had been experiencing, because my grandparents were very big in the church community in their little town. So they had the minister or whoever it was come for dinner every Sunday, and that person would take my dad for a walk every Sunday from the time he was small until it no longer served him anymore. So my dad finding this out at 17, it just was like, is this why nobody did anything about this? Is this why I was just fed to this person? Like, that really, really fucked him up. One of the smartest men I ever met in my life, but battled addiction like a motherfucker because of what he experienced and because he couldn't talk about it.
yeah.
Nobody wanted to hear that. Like, he'd have depressive states where he wouldn't shower for months at a time. Like, it was bad. Really, really bad.
And I've been struggling with this lately because I think that's why it's so important that we're trying to have these community discussions and
Oh, Valerie, that's great.
be open with each other. But people, and I don't know how to really articulate it, but people want to know that you're like how you're doing until you actually tell them how you're doing.
Yep.
100%.
It's like they want to
Yeah.
only hear the surface stuff. And I get it that everybody's overwhelmed in their lives. Like, life is, and maybe it's the age that I'm at or whatever. We all have a lot of responsibilities and life is always throwing stuff at you. So it's like people, I think, are trying to care, but they only want to care as much as they can, and they don't really want to hear it. If that makes sense. Like, it's been tough for me because I've had a lot of health issues this past year, and it's like nobody asks me like how I'm doing or anything, and it's like, and I guess that's because for like the first little while, every single time they asked me, I was like, well, it's been tough, this has been difficult, I'm going through this, until like they just stop asking.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking because it's like, wow, like like that's where like you can lose people, I find, because it's like I guess you didn't really want to know.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
struggling big time with that. Sorry, Court.
No, you go ahead.
Okay.
No, you keep
I'm
going.
I'm the same with you, Monica. The last few months, like, I've been struggling really hard with the same thing. Like, and I'm very open. I tell people that, oh man, I'm depressed. I've got high anxiety. I've just been struggling a lot lately. I'm in this funk. I can't seem to get out. You know, I've been sharing it with my kids and friends, and nobody, nobody like will call me or text me and say, "Hey, how are you doing today?"
Just checking
And
up.
it's very disheartening for me. And like the only comfort or support that I've been getting is through this.
Mm.
And
Oh,
and I
well, sorry,
just
Bobby. You can just fuck right off.
I just did that. He's muted.
Okay, sorry.
and
I
I
wasn't.
just find it really disheartening. Like, why don't my kids even contact me and ask me if I'm okay? It's probably because they just don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how, they probably don't know what to say, or they don't like seeing their mom being this way, or I don't know.
I think
Well, and I think from like a kid's perspective too, and I'm just going to throw this out there, they want to assume that you're like the pillar of strength in their life.
Yeah.
So regardless if you feel like you are or not, you are to them. So I
Yes,
think it's a little
100%.
bit different psychology for the kids because they like, you know, want you to probably feel like they're always just sending you love, right? But the not being checked up on, not getting a phone call, not getting a text, like when you're these people that you think are like, wow, these people are important in my life. Like I can't
Yeah.
imagine. And I find it pretty easy to like, and this is a bit of a flaw of mine, but I find it easy to cut people off. So like I'll
Yes.
just be like, fine. Like I'm not interested. Like, or oh, now it's convenient for you. Oh, okay. Like
Yeah.
I mean, and that's like a negative trait that I have that I'm trying to not, you know, act on because I don't think that there's any malice or ill intention behind the behavior. I think it's really,
self-preservation.
fortunately, the people that I have in my life don't have a lot of shit to deal with that I do. Like they aren't depressed. They aren't dealing with all kinds of trauma. I mean, I think everybody has some and everybody needs to heal to some degree, but I have surrounded myself with people who are quite healthy in that regard. I'm definitely the black sheep in that end. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a bit of both. I struggle with it because it's like they don't understand it at all, right? They don't understand it the same way. And I'm glad that they don't, but it would be nice to feel a little bit more supported. But I don't know.
Yeah. I totally
Well,
get that.
yeah, I feel that way too. The kid thing, like sometimes it's hard because you want to be the pillar of strength for your kids, but you also want your kids to understand that you're a fucking human being
Yeah.
and that you need sometimes for them to think of you as a person as much as they think of you as a parent, especially when they start to get older. I don't know, maybe that's a selfish thing to say, but like I feel like there just comes a time like you raise your kids to be these people that do care for other people and that are courteous and considerate to other people's feelings. So you should be important in that whole thing too, right? You know what I mean? If that makes sense. Like, I mean,
Ignited, how old are your kids?
They're in their 30s, all of them.
Yeah. Well, I
Right.
was just gonna say, because 20-year-old Monica didn't give a shit about anybody, you know, but 30-year-old me, it's a little bit different. So I feel you on that.
Yeah.
I wanted
yeah,
to
and that's the hard part, right? It's just, it's hard to be a human raising humans and then to also come from being kind of a broken human to trying to raise not broken humans. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's a bit of a fucking mess.
two things really quick, just to backtrack on one thing when you're saying when we're all talking about adoption and stuff. It, a couple of things that hit when I was an adult that threw me for a real loop as well was finding out that my brother and my sister come from two different fathers.
Oh, wow.
So my younger brother has a different father than my sister and I. My sister has a different father than myself and my brother. And my biological father was the one who actually abused the family. The other thing is I did not know until, like, once again in my adulthood, that my biological father was adopted. And it was when he went into the adoptive home that he was abused. So when I look back at my history and my family history is so sketchy, like I don't have all the details or anything. I go, well, how do I know if my maiden name was actually his name from birth, or is that maiden name that I have coming from the adoptive parents? So, you know, that was a very triggering comment. Because I don't know my freaking family history. And when it comes to chronic health and stuff too,
Yep.
I'm deteriorating, and I'm going, what the hell? I don't have answers.
That's what I was
But
just going to ask you. Like, what would make it different for you with the last name if you found out that it was? I understand the genetic part. That makes total sense. Yeah, I get
yeah,
that.
I
But
think it's
if you
more or
found
less.
out about the maiden name,
I think it would be well, I changed my name when I was 19 anyway to honor my foster parents, so I took their last name, and that was another way to further disconnect me from those family roots, so to speak. Um, but I think it would come down to what that family tree looks like on that side. So not just genetically, but you know, who are my aunts and my uncles and my cousins, and are any of them healthy, or is that whole branch of the tree toxic and abusive and whatever as well? Or who knows, maybe his biological mother and father were amazing people and he would have had a great life, but because they were young or inexperienced or whatever, they made that decision to give him up. And then he ended up in a home where he was abused, which transformed his life. You know, so all those questions that happen.
They do. They definitely do.
Yeah. And then Monica, you were saying one more thing too, real quick, about being quick to push those people out and be done with them. I'm notorious for doing that, and and I know it's a defense mechanism that, you know, people will come in, and it's very quick for me to either close that door or to walk away. And I was realizing a lot of it was to stop myself from hurting any more than what I already am. So I'm putting that effort in, but there's resistance or whatever. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be over here and I'm going to care. I'm going to leave that door open for them. If they don't come through that door, then I'm just going to keep moving forward because I'm so used to that loss,
yeah,
you know, and that heartache.
yeah, it's a protection. It's a protection thing for
I
sure.
put the wall up immediately and be like, okay, it
I
is what.
always have like the other door just a little bit like within sight, and it sucks. Like it's not fun. I don't want it to be like that. Like even with my husband,
Valerie.
I've been honest with him. It's like I don't fully trust anybody, and it sucks. And I'm getting better, and I you know I am working on that. But yeah, when you it's has served me well in some ways, but it's not where I want to be at for the rest of my life. I don't want to continue through the rest of my life with that guard up and always expecting the worst because it sucks.
There's got to be a happy medium, right? Like there's got to be a way that you obviously have to, you know, eject people that are not working, that are not serving you, that you're not what you're putting in, you're not getting anything out of it, but also not just shutting everybody off because it's just, you know,
Because it's easier.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I do look back, I recognize the areas where I screwed up and they were good people. But
Yeah.
at the time, I'm so hyper vigilant in protecting myself that, or in some, and the reverse. Sometimes I feel like I'm protecting that other person from my shitstorm by going, I need you to be over there.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like a double-edged sword. Like, no, I got to protect me, but at the same time, I'm going to protect you from my shitstorm because I'm out of control or I got whatever's going on.
Yeah.
And we push away good people.
Paranoia.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, yeah.
Paranoia.
It's hard not.
I got a friend at work that kind of understands my trauma and stuff. And I have gone through bouts of times where I've gone through like all my social media and I've gotten rid of so many people and block them and stuff like that. And then some people will go to her like, what's her deal? She's like, she's just going through a moment of paranoia. It's part of her trauma. Like, don't take it personal. She's being triggered right now for whatever reason, and that's what happens. She will delete and block people, and I'm like, yeah, that's what I do.
Right? It gives you that sense of control.
Yeah.
you're controlling that, that part of things where it's like, okay, I've got this is my boundary. I've got it set the where I need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 100% a control thing for sure. You're just
90,
trying to hold on to
everything
your life,
I
you feel, right?
Well,
everything I do.
you're not
Like,
intentionally trying to hurt people either, and
no.
right people will understand, and the right people will remain, and they will either hover in the background and pop in when they know they're going to be received well, I guess, if that makes sense, but they're going to hold that space and just understand.
Yeah. I think too, our expectations sometimes of people that we are close to, it's unreasonable to have expectations of someone else's ability, right? But it's hard not to, because you're like, well, this is how you should be, because this is just the way it should be, because this is how I would be. But that's unrealistic to put on somebody else. So, I mean, for myself, I'm like, I disappoint myself more in the things that you know,
I have this chat with a few of my newer friends within the community here. Don't ever have expectations of me, because you're just setting yourself up for a fall.
yeah,
If I do anything for you, you are not obligated to me at all. So
yeah,
don't put that on me either. If you come in and you do something for me, I'm not obligated to you.
yep,
And I really stress that with people, because I found myself in situations where, well, I've done this for you, now you need to do this for me back, and it's like, I'm sorry, I never asked for you to do this for me in the first place.
yep.
Hmm.
And that's why it's hard to accept help,
Expectations.
right?
Pardon?
I said that's why it's hard to accept help in that way too,
Yeah.
because they're like, well, what do you want out of this?
Yeah.
Are you going to turn it around later
Have to pay
and
for
be
it
like,
later.
well, I did this for you, so now you owe me? Or are you going to go and talk shit about me because you did this for me and I didn't thank you the way that you wanted to be thanked?
Reciprocate.
That's part of that paranoia, though, too, right? Because you don't 100% know someone is doing that. But now I'm like, I don't accept help, or I won't do this. Like, I sabotage myself because I'm so concerned that, I'm not gonna meet their expectation that I've made for them, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah. And I will say, and this is a little bit of a success story, because it's nice to hear you saying that you're surrounding yourself with some different people or whatever, and you're setting boundaries and things like that, and you're being more like communicative in that matter. For myself, my husband and his family are just incredible people. Like, I'm just so blessed. And I, because I've had a lot of health issues this past year, which has left me like bedridden for days and weeks on end, I had no choice but to ask for help. Like, I literally was like crawling on the floor, like asking for help, because I have young kids. I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. Like, I needed the help, and it was a humbling experience. But you can find those people, right? You can find, there is good people out there. Like, we talk about a lot of the negative stuff, but there is the good people out there. I know it's we're talking about like our defense mechanisms. I've had to slowly like tear mine down to allow this love in, but it is possible, and it is coming, and I am starting to see a different side. It takes, work on both ends, right? But on their end, like, they're looking at me as like their daughter. They're like, of course we'd help you. Like, you're not feeling good. We love our grandchildren. Like, it, to me, I'm like, what do I have to do to convince you to do this? What do I have to pay you? What do I have to do later? Like, don't worry, like, I'll make this up to you. Like, that's what's going through my mind. And I'm sitting guilty and checking on them, being like, oh, like, I'm sorry. Like, I can't help right now, but like, I'll help later. And I'm making all these excuses up when like really they're just offering love
yep.
and support.
I
It's
have
like, fuck, like, there is this good out there.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what I was getting at. Is it's so hard to accept help because of the times that you have had those issues, but there are those people that are just genuinely trying to help you. But again, you kind of sabotage it because you're like,
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with the possible repercussions of allowing you into this space.
Yeah.
Right?
Recognizing
That Bert once, twice shy thing, right?
Yeah, I'm recognizing that like you, Monica, my health has been rapidly declining, and I've put myself out here in the middle of nowhere in a form of that self-isolation thinking that I'm doing right by myself, but at the same time, I'm recognizing as things are progressing that I'm actually putting myself more in harm's way by self isolating. And I need to make some drastic changes in the next little while, even if it means I have to move house and home to a different location so I'm closer to people.
Yeah.
But that's my fear, is I do not want to be a burden to people.
But
So
you're
it's-
not. When you find the right people, they will never even consider it like that. And that's the lesson I feel like I'm so grateful that I learned this past year, because it's like I've always had to just be the one to do everything on my own. Like I was given way too much responsibility, and I had to make decisions that were like way beyond me, like in my capacity at a young age, and dealing with things as we all have. And, and everybody who's listening, I'm sure too, like it sucks. But then I guess I just, I'm grateful that I've gotten to a spot in my life where I'm letting down that guard, and I'm actually taking the blinders off to see, like, okay, like what actually is this? And I know it's not just because of what I've built, it's because of the decisions that I've made, to incorporate people into my life, to find that love, to find that joy. I've made these decisions. I've worked my ass off to get here. I need to start enjoying it now, right? And it's been a eye-opening experience for sure. And it is lovely when you get to that point, when you do, because you all will find that love. It is there.
Absolutely. Yep. It's just being able to let that guard down. We had somebody ask if they can join.
His name is Nugget. He's one of us, so it's up to you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm down with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like the idea of that.
Yeah.
And I am going to, I'm not going to disconnect. I'm going to see if this will work. But my landlord's trying to contact me, and I need to make sure that he understands he's not being avoided.
Oh, here we go.
So I'm just going to.
There we go.
I'll be right back.
Come on in.
Hello, welcome to the conversation. Thank you for all your messages that have been coming through.
Hey, Nugget.
How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
I'm listening to you guys quite intently, actually. I'm 100% on almost all of your levels with the self-isolation and the imposter syndrome and letting people down and letting people into your space and then dealing with the trust issues after. Yeah, I'm on your page. It's just so weird to hear so many people talk about it at once.
Yeah.
It's refreshing. So I just wanted to say, like, I appreciate you guys, man. I'm currently trying to get out of my house. I'm about 2 hours late because I'm going out in public. I got to shave. It's not even a big deal, right? I do it all the time.
Oh, I
can
get
do it for
that.
work, but it's not, right? I can get out for work, but I can't get out for no other.
Yep, I get like that. Go to the grocery store, and then I'll have a full-on panic attack, and I'm
Feel
like,
you.
and I'm gonna die in here.
I'll just listen for a bit now.
But yeah, I know that feeling of being in the public spot. You can do anything. Like going to work for me, I'm usually isolated by myself anyways, which is great. But yeah, when I have to go out into public, especially if I see people I have to talk to, I'm like, oh fuck, and I'm out. Like I don't. That's what I do miss masks for that reason. Just to have, and you didn't have to talk to people. Isn't that terrible? But it's true.
Self-isolation is for real. Absolutely.
No, I get that.
We do this every day.
Yeah, I feel it. I really do. I hate public anything really.
Yep.
Chunky?
I struggle with it too.
I was just gonna say something that's worked for me for that, because I've definitely had big bouts of that where I've been like super social or like able to be in environments with a lot of people, and then completely the opposite where I can't leave my house. And chunking it down was like the easiest way for me to sort of like okay, I got one thing to do. I'm not going to think about anything else, which I know is like very difficult to do, but just trying to chunk it down into like one thing a day, because one of the problems that I have found is that I have so much shit going through my head. I'm trying to work on I'm trying to take care of my kids, trying to take care of myself, trying to take care of my house, obviously have to work, obviously have to have like all these other relationships. And it's like, you can't do it all. Like you can't. have all those dialogues in your head at once. So it's like I got one thing to do. I'm gonna push out as much of the other thoughts as I can and just go grocery shopping. All I'm thinking about is just the food I'm buying. I'm only looking at I'm not gonna open up my phone and look at anything else. I'm just gonna look at my grocery list. I'm just gonna get the groceries. And then it's like one of the things that would put me over the edge is like, oh God, I have to like go and get gas. It's like, oh God, one more thing I gotta do, right? But it's like, okay, just one of those things. Just take one at a time. Like, I don't know. Hopefully that makes sense.
For me, what I do is I get 3 days off from work. I always spend my first day off doing absolutely everything that I have to get done. So it's all done, and then I can stay home for the next 2 days and not have to go out anywhere.
Yep.
So it's like push through it, just get it.
Yeah.
I'm with Ignited. I'm a binge. I just want to get it all done in one sitting, and then I don't have to. Usually Friday or Thursday are my days, because then I don't have to go out all weekend, because I fucking hate going anywhere on the weekend.
I have what I feel are my safe places to go. So it took quite a bit for me to get comfortable even stepping into volunteer role that I've taken on right now. And they know that they understand me better now when I'm like, you know what, there's too many people here. I need to step out. You know what? I don't know why these two women are arguing, or these people are arguing over here over nothing. I actually need to step up because it's very triggering and overwhelming for me. And then somebody who knows me well enough will step in and say, you know what, like, or hey, we'll put you over here and we'll give you a different space to work in. Perfect.
Trigger management.
Absolutely. Trigger management.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's not personal to anybody. I tell them it's just trigger management. Like I cut you out of my life. It's not personal. I'm managing my triggers.
Yep. Absolutely. And I had to do that with a friend recently.
For me?
Mm-hmm.
I had to do that with a friend recently.
Me too.
I caught on at a certain point that when she was not doing well in her home life, because she's still in that environment, whenever her and I got together, she would bring that stuff into the conversation. And I told her, listen, I'm not going to have this conversation with you. We need to change the subject. And it's not negating what she's going through. It's just, it was constant and very triggering for me and very damaging for me. But she kept bringing it back to the same topic, to the point where I was like, I got pissed off and I just stepped back from the whole friendship going, you're not respecting me and my boundaries. And you have decisions to make. And I can't be the person that you utilize as your hero or your salvation. And I can't fix your problems. You know, like the different titles that she was putting on me constantly. Like somehow because I'm out of my situation and healing, that I can rescue her from her situation.
Yep. Exactly. And you do have to do that. That's one of the biggest things. Like Jen said, you have to tell people like I don't have the space or capacity for this.
Yeah.
I just don't.
And that's something I've had to do recently because I would just get so drained. This is going back a couple of years now, not realizing that I had a responsibility in it as well, because I would just take it all on. Just like, yep, I'll listen, I'll answer. Because I always wanted to be that person that helped, that fixed, that going back way to the beginning of our conversation of like us filling the void for somebody else. It's like full circle. Doing that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, with other family members who were like, oh, well, you know, you always understand, you know, you get these things. Like you know, and we're empaths. And we have been through a lot of different scenarios in our lives, like not by choice. So we do have something of value probably to offer, but you can't just be the dumping grounds.
Well, exactly. Actually, I just wanted to respond.
Oh.
Sorry, go ahead. No,
I was gonna say,
ahead.
I find the act of healing others sometimes is the act of self-avoidance.
Yes.
Yes.
Nugget.
100%.
So busy helping everybody
I'm very
else.
empathic as well, and I'm drawn to it, and I will search out the hurt and wounded and stay there, and they get fixed and leave, and I'm still here picking up more hurt and wounded.
Yep.
Relatable. Absolutely relatable.
Absolutely relatable.
Yeah.
Because it
100%.
makes me feel their strength. I see it in them. I feel their strength, and it's an illusion to us that it's our strength, but it's them. We're empowering them and ourselves at the same time. But when that connection is gone, we're left empty because we never healed ourselves at all. We did nothing for our own self-nurturing.
Yep.
So that's where I am now in the last like few months.
You can't keep pouring out of an empty cup.
Nope.
No.
Expect your cup to be refilled or filled. You have to fill your cup in order to be able to put anything into anyone else's cup. And even then, it's within moderation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to, Jen made a comment about having to tell your kids that you are at capacity. And I've had to start doing that. Like I have 6-year-old twins, and there are times where I have to be like, guys, like I just don't have what you need from me at this particular moment, which is really hard to tell 2 6-year-olds that, but it's honest, because I would rather be like, you need to give me 5 minutes than take 20 and then lose my shit on them for no reason, because I'm just so overstimulated and to the max, right?
Yeah.
And it's so hard because, you know, there are people that look at that and they're like, well, that's not really good parenting. And it's like, it's honest though. At least they'll understand that, you know, they're not going to blame themselves for me blowing up.
Yeah.
They're not going to take that shit on. They're going to understand, okay, mom needed 5 minutes. It's not our fault. Mom's just having a busy day. It's okay. Give her 5 minutes. She comes back. She's fine.
And it's also about like how you're saying it. You're not saying like, God, you need to give me 5 minutes because you've made me so exhausted, right? Like that's the difference between like a narcissist saying it to you and you being a healthy individual being like, I just need to take a moment. I love you. I'll be right back or whatever, right? Like it's just a way you're doing the same thing, like in your head, like you're it's going through your head. It makes sense, but like it's the way you're approaching it, it's the way you're saying it.
Yeah.
That makes such an immense difference to the kids.
Well, I mean, there have been times where I'm like, guys, like if you ask me for another snack, I might move out. Like I might leave because it's been hours and hours. You know what I mean? Like just.
That's how I would speak to my niece and my nephew and any child that I would nanny. I would always make it clear that I was coming from a place of love and care. Whenever I said, you know, to my niece in particular, hi, honey, you know, Auntie loves you very, very much. I need a few moments to myself. And if you can go play somewhere, I will come and find you. And then I'll spend some time with you and we can do some cuddles or play a game or whatever. And she'd just go, okay, Auntie.
Yep.
Because she knew that I would come to her and come and get her and spend that time with her. And I would do the same with kids that I would nanny. It's like, hey, you guys, you know, let's find something functional to do. I'm going to take a few moments over here to myself, and then I'll come and get you and we'll do something fun. You're like, all about the communication, right?
Well, exactly. And that's just it. I mean, probably for most of us, we didn't grow up that way, right? We grew up and you just get yelled at or you're inconvenient or whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
Well, I do that with my husband. Like some days I can't talk to people, and I'll just have keywords, you know, I'll just say to him, like, I'm emotionally drained. I can't talk to you today. And because he's forced me, and that didn't turn out well for him. So now he knows when I say that I just don't want to talk today, he's like, okay, we won't go there again. I will leave you be.
Yeah. Well, it's important to know your boundaries and that other people understand them and respect them too, right? Yeah. You can only do so much. You know, we think
I have to process. For me, I have to process things, and I can't talk. Like I can't talk before I process things, and sometimes that'll take a day, sometimes that'll take an hour, sometimes it'll take 10 minutes. I don't know. But eventually, once I've processed whatever the fuck is going on in my head, I can talk about it. But until then, leave me the fuck alone.
Yeah.
I'm bipolar 1 and 2 rapid cycle, and I can't trust the emotions in my head sometimes, and it makes my isolating even worse because I can't interpret what people are saying, or it just doesn't make sense that I feel nothing sometimes. Like I'm not an aggressive, like get angry type bipolar. I'm just either really high or really depressed. So I'm always suffering consequences of the last person there, if that makes sense. So I'm always hiding. Yep. And I'm always cutting people out and then bringing them back, and then cutting them out and then bringing them back. Exhausting. It's easier.
Is there anything that you do that's made that easier? Like, is it having that conversation with people? You say pushing them away, bringing them back. Like, how have you been able to manage that?
Hmm. Lately, I've just being authentically me and stopped caring about what people say anymore. Because I'm in a constant state of asking for forgiveness for who I am. And it's not a design fault, it's a design flaw. It's not my fault I'm this way, it's a flaw in me. And you can accept my flaws or you can't. They're not my fault, so I'm not going to blame anybody, but that's not my fault. So I just cut you out.
Stay and the wrong people will go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
So even like for my Facebook, I create a lot of stuff about substance abuse and sexual abuse and stuff on my TikTok, and I was hiding it from my family on Facebook for 5 years, and I finally just posted it, and all of a sudden, it's on my family, right? My friends and family are supposed to support me. And all of a sudden, it's like something's wrong with you. You need to see a doctor. Like you're currently clearly not okay, and all these weird comments. And I'm like, dude, this is just content. It's just like relatable, but it's weird how the people who are supposed to be there for you, they're not. And I just realized that my life is so much easier, like happier now and less complicated. Happy, like I decided to be happy. I just decided to be happy recently, and it's so awesome. I guess that's what I did. What I'm saying, how I deal with this is, I just decided I chose happiness.
That's great.
So
Jen saying so relatable, buddy. Virtual hug.
Yeah, no, and it is so relatable because it's so true. Because Monica, you and I were having this conversation,
Yeah.
especially about Facebook. Like that's where you would think our biggest support group would be, and it's like as soon as we post anything that pertains to like our subject, like our content on
Basically, feelings in general.
everybody's just like, "Hoo, hoo, 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 doo,
I had the
doo,
weirdest
doo."
comment from a family member, and it was about why if I don't like the negative comments, I shouldn't post it all over the internet for people to see. And I got hurt, and I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't. It's my Facebook. You're on my Facebook. I posted it on my house. You don't like it? Get out. I hate that comment. Well, you shouldn't post it for everyone to see. I didn't. I
You're like, it's
posted
not
it
a
for my
public
friend.
account.
Yeah.
Right, it's my
Like,
friend.
it's a private
You're
account.
obviously my friend, so get out.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got all offended. Get out.
No, I get it. When I first started to talk about how I was like our podcast, how I was really like embracing my health and my wellness journey and sharing it and talking about it, my dad was like, "Oh, I see what you're doing. I really wish you'd go and get some help." I'm like, "Where the fuck were you 30 years ago?" Like, or like that's not a productive comment. Like, if you think that I need help, maybe a productive thing to do would be to come over and give me a hug, offer to help. Like, it blew my mind but that's like been very typical of a lot of interactions I've had with, and that I don't, it hurts, but it's not like I don't hold it against them because obviously that's a person who does not understand what I'm talking about or dealing with. And I can't hold that against him, but I was like, wow,
Fucking nice, right?
that's what this is. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sucked.
absolutely. Well, it does suck because you put a lot of work into this stuff, and the people that you think would be uber supportive of it are just like, this actually makes me really uncomfortable, and I didn't want to know these things because now I'm going to look at you differently, and it's like, well, too fucking bad for you.
Yeah.
The
Exactly.
worst part
You didn't have to
for me
live with
is
it.
through what I do, and I'm not complaining about this at all, but I deal with like 10 people a week, and I read people's suicide letters with them, and I do the most profound stuff through TikTok weekly, and on Facebook to my friends and family. They're like, this is ridiculous, who are you pretending to be, blah blah, like they're making fun of me, but yet I mean something to someone else, you know what I mean? Like I'm helping people, and people don't get that.
No,
It's
you
like
don't.
they're making fun of my mental
Exactly.
illness, like,
Yeah,
articulating what it's like for me to have it. You know what I mean? I'm just showing people this is how I relate to you. This is what happens to me.
Yeah, if they're not making fun of
so
it, they're
weird.
recognizing it against you.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah,
bullshit.
I've gotten the same reactions too, where people are like, is she losing it again? Like, why is she posting all this stuff on social media and blah blah blah? And it's like, seriously, it's time to not like, it's time to end the stigma. It's time to not be silent anymore. It's time to really support, like, mental health does matter, you know?
I'm not
You know,
gonna
this
hide
big
much of
push
it.
that's supposed
So
to
you
be
can
out
take
there,
it.
mental health matters. Well, this is how we fucking do it. We talk
Yeah,
about it.
this is actually it.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
just like writing it or putting your profile picture up. Like,
Yep.
It's not just saying the words, it's actually doing the actions.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
Yep.
Yep.
No, and that's just it. That's like this is the catalyst to break that stigma is to talk about this shit at the top of your lungs, and it doesn't matter if it makes people uncomfortable. It's about being uncomfortable. It's getting comfortable being uncomfortable because everybody deserves to be heard, and
Yeah.
mental health is one of the biggest things that affects everybody. I would say most people are good at hiding it, and that's not good either. You know?
Look at all the connections that are happening just by all of us stepping forward and giving voice to, you know, what's happened in our lives and what we are struggling with on a daily basis. And how it's resonating and relatable to so many other people out there. And some of these people were probably sitting in the dark, not understanding that this is the shit they are going through, whether they've suppressed the memories, whether they're just coming to terms to it, whether they're still in it or out of it, whatever the scenario might be, and all the connections that are happening. And people are
Yeah.
Well, look at how long we all sat in the dark,
oh God, yeah.
right? And that's why we're speaking out, is to help those that are still in the dark, because they don't have to be there anymore.
we don't.
And we don't have to relate to everybody. Like,
No.
I don't want to relate to everybody. The people who need it, I hope, will find this. And I don't need to be everybody's cup of tea. Like,
Exactly. I'm
I
not a whiskey.
Yeah, right.
I'd prefer whiskey anyways.
I like to be Jaeger.
Like, it's there wasn't much, or I mean, even like we've been doing some like research on the TikTok world about like why is it like, because there's always like these like shadow bannings and like all of these things
Yeah.
that come about, and it's all very tricky to like, you know, how to get your name and your messages out there. And a lot of like the mental health and the trauma like just doesn't get pushed out. And I don't know why. Maybe that's like, I don't know who the inventors of TikTok are, but like maybe there's some sort of like doesn't align with them. But hopefully the people who are looking for these things will find us. It doesn't need to go out to like hundreds of millions of people, like, you know, some of these other videos go viral. But it would be nice to touch more people. But like my point is, those who need it hopefully will find a safe space, because there are a lot of people who are dealing with stuff, and you don't have to relate to every topic. You don't have to relate to every scenario. That's, you know, I hope you don't. I hope people don't. But we are sharing from a lot of different perspectives who have endured some stuff along the way, and we're just trying to share, you know, our message and spread some love and let people know that there are others out there who get it.
Yep. It only takes one to resonate with one thing to realize, like, hey, I'm not alone.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the most profound thing, for in my experience, anyways, is when you're feeling that darkness and you're like, I don't know what else I can do here. I'm really getting to that brink where this is not my place anymore. And then you find that one thing, you're like, holy fuck, I'm not alone.
Mm-hmm.
There are other people. There is light at the end of this tunnel. I can do this.
Shooter girl.
You know? Not about being healed. It's about just continuing to do the good work and be a good person.
It really is.
That's, for me, that's my
Yeah.
thing.
Well, I think we are making a difference. And I'm new to this TikTok live thing, but I love it. And it's nice to like.
Remember how much you didn't? You were like, I don't want to do TikTok lives. They appreciate it.
Because when you scroll through the TikToks, like the lives at night, it is fucking weird.
Very, very weird.
People are doing very weird things.
This is true. I have seen some really weird stuff. I won't lie. It's true.
Mm-hmm.
And like,
But what's weirder is that you sit there and watch it.
I know, I get sucked in. I'm like, what is this person? Are they dancing in like a tutu? Like what?
And then an hour later, like, why am I still watching this?
Like send them all the time. Yeah.
It's human nature to be curious, and you're watching a train wreck, and you're going,
Yeah.
"Did we really do this shit?"
Well, that's just it, right? I mean, I hate to say it, but truth is always stranger than fiction, and that's the truth. Like, you know, watching that stuff, you're like, oh my God, this is how real people are. Interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
I just want to say thank you, Nugget, for joining us. I
Yes,
love your
absolutely.
perspective too, right? Especially coming from a male and your background and experiences. Appreciate it, man.
Well,
Yeah, we definitely need more of that.
I've known the
Yeah.
igniting spirit since the beginning of my adventure here. I think you were there when I cried up for the first time in front of everybody. I had
Yeah.
my bipolar meltdown.
Yeah.
Live.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were there. I appreciate you, friend. Like, I
I
want to cry.
appreciate you too, brother. I love you.
You realize who's still here later in life. I look back and think,
Yeah.
anyways, love you guys. I gotta go.
Oh,
Okay.
thank you so much for being
For
here.
coming on.
Yeah.
Love
See
you,
later.
brother.
We'll definitely.
I just wanted to look at some of these comments. There was lots of
Definitely chat again.
discussion. We need to talk about these things. Yeah, we are not alone. Absolutely. Putting in healthy boundaries. Yep, that's, absolutely needed.
Yeah.
Jen, I'm
It's
so
so
glad that
hard.
you're here.
Hard to keep up with comments when we're
Yeah,
busy
well, it's
chatting.
hard. It is, and
Yeah.
that's the hard part about doing the lives, right? Because you like when you're doing them like this, because you want to, converse, and then you also want to engage.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is how we develop Alzheimer's.
I can't read and talk at the same time.
Well, I can't either. I can't. No, mind you, I can watch television, play a game on my phone, and there's something else I can do at the same time. Like it's ridiculous. Like all this outer just stimulation, and then I wonder why I don't sleep.
Yeah.
Possibly that's why.
Wow.
Well, this is good. I don't know if we actually talked about the topic we were going to talk about, but
I think we touched.
I like how it unraveled. I think we did good.
I do too, and you know what? Like sometimes the organically grown conversation and just letting it roll is the best thing. Then nothing is forced.
Yep.
Yep.
Right?
100%.
A lot of this other stuff that we're all thinking of can happen in other conversations. Once again, just come out organically. Yeah, I'm pretty. I'm sitting here in awe once again at everything that just transpired in this live, and I'm sitting in my feels again, going like. But if this is part of the Twilight Zone, this is the best part of the Twilight Zone. This is coming out of the dark shit of the Twilight Zone into the light shit of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah. Into the Stardust part. I like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, I'm gonna cough again because I have this awful cold and it's really annoying.
Oh yes, I'm Manuel. Monica, Manuel.
Sweet. This is my co-host on our podcast. Yeah, I like doing these. I found them, and the thing is too. I don't know if I know. I think I mentioned this to you, B. I don't know if I mentioned this to you, Ignited, but we can actually post this on YouTube.
right.
The entire.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome, and I think that we should definitely do that.
Yeah. Well, then
Yeah,
other
I
people
follow.
can find it, right?
Yeah.
But it gives us another place for people to find this good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and the nice thing about, TikTok and YouTube is that the search function's so good. So if people are looking for these topics that we're discussing, then we'll show up, right? Where like Facebook and things like that, like it just, it's different.
Very much so.
Yeah. Yeah, Facebook is a little bit on the, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but it is definitely, I don't want to shit talk it too much because I don't want them to ban us or whatever. I don't even know if they do that. Like, I don't even know. But yeah, these are definitely easier but apparently it's hard to grow on YouTube. So I don't know. I hear mixed things about everything. It's hard to say.
Yeah, it's definitely different than it used to be. So But well, this was lovely.
It was. I'm definitely
Yes,
feeling a little
ladies.
like emotionally, like that whole, I don't want to say frozen, but just sort of like full.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way, but just a lot of
It,
process.
I I appreciate all of this as well in many ways because I feel it's a safe way to address some of the things that are coming to the forefront for me as well. And then like you guys share stuff, and then all of a sudden it's like I'm taken back to that moment, but I can address it from more standing outside of it than being embroiled in it. So yeah, I might get triggered, but I can kind of disconnect from that trigger and go, okay, so this is obviously something I need to look into further and address a little bit better, and put more of that to rest. Because I was like, wow, the number of triggers that have been happening in a short period of time,
Yep.
I'm allowing myself that space to embrace them, to address them, because I know they need to be addressed. Yeah, so I'm feeling I think the only way I can say it is in awe. Sorry about that.
It's like the dogs were like mimicking exactly how you're feeling inside. Just like here comes the ah.
Yeah, it's like you guys can do the explosion for me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I love that you said that you can kind of remove yourself and look at it differently, because I think that's part of the like not feeling so alone part. You're able to sort of be like, okay, what is this? Because our logical brain wants to do that. And that when you feel like when you understand what other people are feeling or going through, it's easy to be like, okay, so this is actually this. And you can approach it maybe a little bit differently and know that like, okay, this is a little bit more normal, or it's a little bit, this isn't something I have to feel bad about because it's happened for other people.
Yeah.
They can tackle it a little bit differently, hopefully a little easier.
All right, ladies, I got to get going here. So,
Yes. Well, thank you very much for joining us, guys. Everybody.
yes, thank you.
Thank you so
Everyone,
much.
we love you very much. We appreciate everybody.
Thank you for
Yes.
joining everybody and all the lovely comments.
Absolutely.
I want one
And
of those kissy hearts.
I know. Yeah, those things are cute. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And for everyone who came in today, you guys are amazing, and speaking up and giving voice, and contributing, your own stories. That's amazing. Excuse me. Seriously, they're like, okay, we've been sitting here long enough. Let's get on with the game.
Yeah.
Chefs
Yes.
and well.
Yes, thank you everybody for joining.